we all know him, we all love him, our very own Ralph Dietrich, has a very interesting hobby, which I find very fascinating, and I hope some of you do too. So, Ralph, if you could come tell us about roasting coffee.
Okay. Thank you, John. Well, the last time I did this at Mooduk, I had COVID and didn't know it. And I didn't feel good. I feel wonderful today, except it's about my nap time. So, and since some of you heard this before, I'm getting older and I kind of forget things. So if I can't think of it, you were there, so you can help me out, okay? Now, I want to make clear that this is a hobby for me. I'm not an expert. I don't know a lot about chemistry and don't know a lot about engineering and physics. I made it passable in high school. So I can't give you all the stuff that when I read these detailed books about coffee, they describe why something's doing something. I just do what they say, and I know what tastes good. And I am in the quest of the perfect cup of coffee, and I'm never going to have it. And even if I get it, there's so many, and you're going to find out what the variables are here. So many variations on things. You just can't repeat a good thing. It's like having a recipe that you just throw stuff together and people love it. It'll never happen again. But generally, I make a good cup of coffee for me and my wife. And that's all that matters. Except for the relatives, when they want me to bring coffee, I'm doing it for them too. And we're going to have different points of view, and I'm going to say some things today that are pretty blunt, but I'm speaking about me and my story and what I like. And we're all different in that. Okay, a little bit of history about coffee. There is a myth or a story, it's been around for a long time, that back in about 850 AD, in Ethiopia at a place called Kaffa, Kaffa, coffee. There was a guy called Khalid, and he was a goat herder. And he had his goats out, and he saw the goats eating things, and they were eating, every time they ate this certain bush, they would get frisky, and like they had a lot of energy. And, the story goes that he went over and he started eating some of it. And he got to it's a cherry. It's red or green. It's called a cherry before the husk is off. And we're eating these cherries, and he did that, and he really got frisky. A lot of energy. So that, of course, that over decades and generations, it changed. And then about, 15, and that was in Ethiopia area. And it spread. And about 1500 in Saudi Arabia, they were drinking coffee as a religious ritual. And then in the 1600s, the Europeans were drinking it. And there's a whole lot of history in there that I don't remember I read, but I don't remember it. Anyway, now this slide is going to be up for a while. Coffee comes from these regions, in Central America, South America, and then Africa, that range. And then Indonesia, the area in Southeast Asia, is the growing region. It has to do with the climate. Can't be too hot, can't be too cold, can't have winters too hot or too cold. Well, that gets hot in the middle there. But again, it depends on the altitude. You see, a coffee bean is like an apple. You grow different apples at different altitudes in different places and different soils. A coffee bean isn't just a coffee bean. It's got a lot of diversity. Altitude matters. It's shade grown. It's sun grown. It's grown in different soils. Different countries have different types of coffee. So you get used to you can have your favorites. I really like Ethiopian coffee. That's my favorite. Yirgacheffe. but an Indian Mysore, and you can get it here at the library, both of them, green coffee beans and roasted, and some others. In fact, I've got copies back there of all the beans they have at the library. If you want to get, and you can, okay, I'm going to tell you, never get it ground, never. That's for a later part of the talk. Get whole beans, roasted, or you can get green beans. You kind of have to go in and say, I want the list for green beans, what you got. And if you've ever been down in the basement of the library, I don't see them there recently, but I used to, they had burlap bags full of coffee from all over the world. Now those last about a year or so, and I've got some green beans here, and I'm going to put them in here in a little bit. They're green. They're small. When you roast a coffee bean, it doubles in size. And that's why when you start it, it's going to be down at the bottom. And as it heats up, it's going to really, go around with the air there. So it increases in double size. Where am I? What was I doing there? Green beans. They're different. So this, those are the areas. Now, Ethiopia is there in northern part, eastern part of Africa. Central America, it started there and then it went to Indonesia and Southeast Asia, Sumatra and all that. I've got a book back there and it'll just give you everything you wanted to know and more. Now, as I said at Mooduk, there are 3 different lanes of coffee. Now, when I was young and high school, I had coffee. And, when you look at the cowboy movies and you see the cowboys around the campfire, they have these percolators. And they're making coffee. They don't have sugar and cream, and they don't make they don't make a dessert out of it like other places do. It's coffee, and it's rot gut. I mean, that's how, but they drink it because it keeps them alive, and that's what they have. Now, I grew up with that kind of coffee because percolator in college, you had percolated coffee, and then you had drip coffee, and it was just coffee. And you go to Giant, and you go elsewhere, and you get it. Back in 1930, Nestle decided to make it real convenient. And they made instant coffee where you just add hot water. That is not a cup of coffee. I mean, that's about as far, and when I read about this, they said, that is about as far as from that goat experience as you can get. There's no distinction. It's just, that's why you add cream and sugar. Side story here. I'm trying to limit the side stories. I was in Ecuador back in the year 2000, 2001 with my family, and I was getting interested in coffee. So I went to a restaurant. I said, I want some coffee, thinking I'm going to get some Ecuadorian coffee. You know what they served me? And this was everywhere. Nescafe. Nescafe, because, see, this gringo, he's homesick. We got to give him what he's used to back home. And little did they know, well, we passed that. We're not doing that anymore. I don't know if they're doing that in Ecuador anymore or not. But and Ecuadorians drank Nescafe too, because that was the uppity thing to do. And of course, they put cream and sugar in it. So that's one lane, and that's how I grew up. It was simple, and it was not good. But we all did it, or at least my generation did it, back in the 50s and 60s. Then there's the middle lane, and that's a big, wide lane, and that's what most of us do. We go to Giant, we go to Weiss. Now recently, and there's a top end of the middle lane, which are all the coffee shops that are around now. So that's evolved over time, but 20 years ago, you want coffee, you go to Giant, and there it is, these shelves of coffee, and you can get it ground, you can get it whole bean, Well, first, I'm not sure when the whole beans came in, and it's in cans, and you open it up and it goes, and it's like what's Maxwell House, good to the last drop. Notice I put here, fresh roasted, really good to the last drop. So it was not good to the last drop. That was advertisement. So that's one type of coffee that most of us, that's why we use cream and sugar, because it's not fresh brewed, fresh roasted. It's not fresh roasted coffee. So the middle lane is pretty big. Now, I didn't address Starbucks coffee last time because I kind of forgot about it on purpose. My younger brother is addicted to Starbucks. He never passed a Starbucks he didn't like, and on a trip he always finds out where the Starbucks is or whatever. I hate Starbucks. It's not in any of these lanes because it just doesn't factor into my thinking. Now, if you're a Starbucks fanatic, well, you're in your own lane that you create. Look, what is it? If I'm on a trip and I need caffeine, I'll stop at a Starbucks. I'm flexible, and I'll put some sugar in it. You got to put sugar in it, and I'll get, black with little sugar. But what is there? It's all this dessert coffee with all this fluffy stuff and additives, and that's not coffee. I don't wake up in the morning and want dessert. and it costs a lot. So, by the way, when you roast your own coffee, when you get a green coffee down at the library, it's half price. Whatever prices are there, just half it, and you buy your green coffee beans. So you save some money there, plus the fun. So that's the middle lane. Now, recently, in the last number of years, the coffee shops are around. So you can get at this coffee shop in the library fresh roasted coffee because now let's go to the next slide. There's a coffee roaster there. He is an expert. He's called a barista. And I went back there and talked to him one time, and that's what they've got. That is thousands of dollars for that big thing, and they roast, a couple pounds of coffee at once or more. And we had a chat. I forget his name, but he comes in every Wednesday, and he makes a bunch of batches, and that's what they put out then to sell. So when I go in and I don't have time, there's a lot of reasons why I didn't roast that week. Could be it's 20 degrees below zero outside, and I can't. But that's another story. So I will look for when was this roasted. Now I'm going to get into this later. A coffee bean is great about 12 hours peak after you roast it. And then 2 weeks later, 10 days to 2 weeks, it starts going down here like that. What's in our stores? Is there anything that's just been roasted? No. And if it's been ground, it is gone from the day it left the plant in terms of taste. So you're just not going to get a good bean when you go to Giant or Weiss's or any place like that. But you can get it here, and there's so many places around that they have their own. They get it from a roaster that's in town, or they have their own roasting process there. So you can get some fresh roasted coffee if you go out of the way and get it. All right. Let's go to the last picture. Okay, these are basic roasting levels, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Now, why did I get into this? Well, it was about 20 some years ago. I read an article. It said, why do Americans put cream and sugar in their coffee? Subtitle, because they don't know what a real cup of coffee should taste like. And I've kind of been hinting at that all along here. And the history of the roasting process and how it's, Nescafe or it's sitting around forever. But back in the day before they had cream and sugar and all that, and the people in these areas were drinking coffee, they ground it. They didn't have, anything to cut it with. A blade roaster or a burr roaster that I have here. And it was without cream and sugar, and it was good. And the way I make coffee is kind of like what they did originally. I'm an originalist. So you don't need, because it's bitter and it's the same, and it's a bad aftertaste, and that's why you add cream and sugar. So I read that article and I thought, I want to do this. And you save a lot of money. Although you spend a lot of money up front if you want to do it just right. But now I don't know how much money I've saved over time by buying my own green coffee beans. Well, now what are the best practices for roasting? And by the way, a lot of this you don't have to roast your own coffee. But you can optimize the sweet spot of what coffee should taste like just by doing some of the things I want to talk about now. I'm gonna pour some of these green coffee beans in here. Now we're not gonna roast very much here because it'll set off the fire alarm and smoke detector. I did that all the time when I lived at 940 Hillside Avenue in E-Town because, see, I can't, I got to watch it when I'm at Masonic Village because if that thing goes off, the whole world comes descending on the cottage because we're all wired in. But if it's just me, it just makes a loud noise in my own home because a light roast, it's not going to get the fumes to set off the smoke detector. But on occasion I would like to see how dark I can get it and see what it tastes like. A really burnt roast. And then I was cautioned because everything I read said there's about maybe 10 seconds between burnt and a fire. And even less than that, I've read stories, but I never got that far. But the smoke detector would always go off. So at Masonic Village, this is what I put it under the stove, and there's a hood, and turn it on high, and it goes out in the attic. So it's taking it out. And I also turn on fans and open windows just to make sure. And I have the telephone right there in case it starts blaring, because you can say abort if you do it real quick. So okay. First of all, water. You need filtered water. Now, I've talked to a couple of people that do beer. Brewmaster, my nephew is one, and I talked to somebody here. It's got to be good water. As they say in the computer world, junk in, junk out. You cannot overcome with the best bean and the best roasting process bad water. It's going to affect it. So one of the things you can do is get filtered water. Get good water, and you can buy it around here, spring water. You got to start with good water. This assumes you want maximal sweet spot without roasting it yourself. Now I got ahead of myself. Let's go into this. Okay, there are different types of roasting processes. This is an air roaster. It gets real hot, 350 to 450 degrees in here. It really gets hot. That's why I have this here to take it off. And so usually I put in 6 ounces of that's, let's see, where's the, oh, here it is. I put 6 of these in. Comes up to about right there. Now I just put a little bit at the bottom here. So that turns it on. Now it's up to 9. That means the fan is up to 9, and the power is down to 3. And I'm gonna have it go for about, well, I'm not gonna do it here, but you're supposed to go for about 1 or 2 minutes, and it kind of gets it going and kind of gets the heat started from the outside to the inside. You want the inside warm, and then after about 2 minutes, then I turn it down to 8 and put this up to 9. That's the highest heat. And you want to, I keep it at the highest heat the whole time. I may, okay, I may take it down to 8 as the fan. You see, the faster the fan goes, the lower the speed on the fan, the hotter it's going to get quicker. It's going to heat up fast because you're not blowing as much air through. So I went to the guy that does the roasting here, because this is a debate. Do you want to get that coffee bean as hot as it can get, as fast as it can get, or do you want it slow roasted? See, it was really neat that I, as an amateur, could go to an expert and I could ask an intelligent question, because he knew what I was talking about. And I said, well, what do you think about this debate? Because it's not either good or bad, it's just different. He said, I do about in the middle. And that's kind of what I do it. I do it kind of in the middle. So I may wait. Okay, I'm going to turn it on to pre-roast. By the way, that's on to catch the chaff. And here's the chaff. It catches up there. I'll let you look at it later if you want. But it's real light. That's why it's going to go up and it's going to catch up there. See, that's going down. That's going back up. And that's the heat way up. Now, I'm not going to let it on too long because I don't know what the fire alarm system is here. Pardon? Well, it'll let's say, okay, well, I'll get into that in a little bit. Because I'll do 3 of these. I'll do three batches that will fill this up, and that'll last me 10 days. Or a little less. Now, if we were to leave this here and I were to have it up a bit, you would see it getting brown. That's green. It would get a little yellow, and then it would keep getting different shades of brown till it gets black. And it would be churning in here. So I'm going to turn it off before something goes on. And then when you take this off, I take this outside to take it off, and then I put then I take these 2 things because I got to get the chaff out, and I blow the chaff off of that, and the wind's blowing. I like a wind, and I dump it in. And while I do that, the chaff goes out, but I have to do it 2 or 3 times. Sometimes it depends on the quality of the bean. I need to, really do it 3 or 4 times and get the chaff out. All right. Then, then I take the hot beans. Well, they've cooled off because there's a cool cycle of 3 minutes. It's got to cool down as fast as it can. It will keep once you're done where you want it to be. In fact, you kind of have to anticipate when it's done, and because it's gonna keep cooking. What I haven't talked about yet is while it's going are the cracks. It's going to have 2 cracks, and this matters because every literature, if people are going to sell you coffee, go to this end of the first crack, or the middle between the first and second crack, or the beginning of the second crack, or 30 seconds into the second crack, what you're going to get over there almost burned. But some beans, they're made for a range of light to dark. Some beans, their sweet spot is light, or their sweet spot is dark, or this one is made for espresso. So it depends. Another thing is the flavors. Beans have complex. Let me read to you descriptions of this coffee that I've got right here, Yirgacheffe. Cupping notes, blueberry, chocolate, strawberry, floral, clean, milky body, incredible balance. And they want you to go to between the first and second crack. Now you can use this as espresso, but okay, this is another thing about espresso are really dark. The original complex flavors. Oh, here's another description. Mild floral notes carry over into flavors. Sweet, very sweet, creamy body with honeysuckle flavors. So I don't care about any of that. What I care about, it's got body. It's not bitter. Doesn't have a bitter aftertaste. And you don't want to talk about coffee as sweet, but it's tad sweet. It's good on the palate, and it's just clean taste, and it's flavorful, and it's like pornography in the Supreme Court. You know it when you feel it and taste it, and it's all individual. And some people really want it a little darker, but you see at the beginning, see that green line, and into the first crack, it's green. That means the original complex flavors that I just read here, those floral tones, that body, that's when that bean is that bean. And the minute you start getting past into the second crack, all of that distinct, unique flavor is compressed into a single bar of dark, and it kind of almost tastes the same. Now, I'm sure the experts would disagree with that, but for me, when it's dark, it doesn't matter anymore. How much you paid for it, where it was grown, and in fact, there's a debate between those who, if you're going to have burnt coffee, don't pay 10 prices for it. Just get the rot gut bean and go with it, because it's not going to matter. But see, that's why that black line comes up there. Burnt, smell, charcoal, ash. Whereas yellow here, the smell, it smells like cut grass. I don't like that. I don't like it real light. But the first crack, I'm into the kind of toward the end of the first crack. The smell smells like coffee. And I know the first crack, popcorn popper. It's like a popcorn popper. It pop, 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 and it's a deep tone. But you get to the second crack, and there's maybe 15 seconds, 30 seconds between the first and second crack. It's going to be like rain on a tin roof. It's going to be real high and tinny and fast. It's a very distinct difference, and it's harder to hear. But I don't. If for me in roasting, if I'm into the second crack, it's losing the distinct. You can see that green line going down. It's losing its why I want to drink it in the first place taste. So and sometimes I make a mistake or I'm thinking about something and I say, oh crap, you know, I put that aside and then I just, I make it. And, so let's see, where do we go? Okay, I've got my coffee. It's done. And you got to just, okay, I have to just be right there and listen real carefully for that crack. Because if you miss it, it's going to change pretty fast. All right, what do I do with the beans that I just brought in from outside? I pour them in a big glass flat pan because they have to cool even more. And I put it in a dark place, and I put 3 batches in that thing. That's going to fill that up. And I let it sit for about an hour because it's degassing. It creates gas. You know, why do we have these holes when you buy coffee? There's a little hole there, and it's a one-way hole because it's going to gas. You open a coffee tin, it's going to pop. There's gas coming off. And that gas is not good. You want to get it out. That's why you shouldn't touch your coffee for at least a day. You want to make it gas. And that's why you see this is a degasser. You don't put it in an airtight, well, it needs to be airtight, but this degasses it. And so do these. So I'll take it then same day. Take it out of its dark place. Oh, dark, heat, let's see, light and air. They damage the bean. And then this is just a fantastic thing. And this is my current batch of roasted coffee that I'm using. Here it is. It's done. And it's exactly what I like and what I use. I used it yesterday morning. And it's airtight with this. And this is worth investing in if you want optimal. And by the way, the air, there are drum coffee roasters. They cost more. This is Fresh Roast 850. It's top of the line for Fresh Roast. That's a brand. Fresh Roast is a brand. And to me, it's the best air roaster. No, if you come to my place and I give you a tutor, you go through the roast and do all this, and I invite anyone to do that. I'll send you home with, one of these and part of the roast. Okay, now back in the day, they make these brand new. This is a Burr roaster hand thing, and I got this from a person who I was helping clean out a house, and this is, I have no idea how many decades old it is, but this is the original old, I don't know, antique, and it works. It's a Burr grind. Okay, and I'm going to get into Burr grind. This is another thing. Don't ever use a blade grinder. That's for spices. It's not for coffee. Okay, you spend all this wonderful time roasting a good coffee bean, and you got this wonderful roasted bean ready to go, and you gotta get it down into little particles. You ruin it with a blade because it heats it up again, and the grounds are uneven. And you're going to use it. Okay, if you're going to use a French press, it's going to sit in the water for 4 minutes. All right, so you need a bigger kernel. So in this one, you can turn it, and the two the cone thing in there gets separated, so it's a bigger kernel. And if you want it for a drip, you want it a lot finer because the water only has one chance to get through that kernel, and then it goes down. So you want it finer. So turn it this way or that way. That's a burr grinder. Don't use a blade. You ruin a good a bean of coffee. Now, so it comes in, it's here, and then you put it in here. Now, this is a drip into a carafe. Now, part of the rot gut coffee that we used to get at truck stops, it had this burner down there. Don't do that. And unless okay, if you're gonna finish it off within the first 15 minutes, this is fine. Or if you're gonna take it out and put it in a carafe, that's fine too. But don't let it sit there and cook for an hour. You know what I'm talking about, I hope, if you have done that. And that's why people that have those at a restaurant, they keep changing. Because after a while, you got to take it off because nobody wants to drink that. Now, this is a little pricier. This has a rainforest top. And this is a flat bottom. Okay, there's two different kinds of machines. There's one that has a central core. It's got a funnel like that. Okay, you got the coffee in there. And what about the sides? See, the coffee's going to go down the center, clear down, and then it's going to creep up the sides, and all the while it's going. So not all of the kernels get the same amount of water. You want that rainforest that comes down all around, a lot of holes, and goes straight down, and everything gets the same thing all the time, except, it makes a difference if you want the maximum out of your coffee. So that, it's automatic. They do timers, but I don't do timers. You can make cold brew here, just a lot of water and a little water. Anyway, so I make that and I set it out, and that's what we drink during the day. And this is excellent. It'll stay warm until mid-afternoon, but I don't want to drink after mid-afternoon anyway. Yeah.
No, seriously.
I do tea after 2 in the afternoon. Okay, let's have some conversation. Yes.
What time do you
We expected.
what time do you start?
What time of the day? Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. Whenever it's not raining outside or too cold, because see, I got to get rid of that chaff outside. I need a little air. And now we do have a front overhang at the porch, so I can go out there, but doesn't have much air there. So it's kind of harder in the winter, or in the summer you can wait till it's not raining. Morning, afternoon, evening. And the room temperature matters. Wind matters. Because if you have a wind on this, and it's cold, or even a warm wind, it's going to change the roasting. You got to have controlled environment is the point. Roast it inside, roast it in the garage. And people that really do it, professionally, they have pipes that go outside. Like there's a pipe over here at the library. And I have a friend that has it. He has it in his basement. He spent several $1,000s for his, and you got pipes going out. But that's professional type. Does that answer your question? Oh, and I could do it like early afternoon because I want time for it to settle before I put it into this. Yes.
2 comments. Thank you for not tripping over the cord.
Gotta watch it.
Now that you've had more time to tell us, or I should say offend us, because we're all in that group that you're not in. 99% of the world doesn't do it this way. Correct?
Depends on where you are in the world.
And I would like to get there, but there is no way until I am retired and have nothing to do that I could possibly do this. So what you're saying is go to Town Library and get the coffee.
Yes.
Right. And then you're skip all that step
Yes.
and you just have to do the other end.
Yes.
And they put it in a K-cup for me.
Well, you have to take up with that.
I don't like them. One, because you get stuff in them. You get stuff in your coffee.
You see, sometimes I say to myself, why am I doing all this when I can just get a fresh roasted bag of coffee beans down here at the library? Why am I roasting? See, I want to get those, but I still want to do this. I want to have it ground right, and I want to use the right kind of, even for this water. For this water, you know, it's filtered to our. We have a filter in our refrigerator at Masonic Village. Never had that before. It's wonderful. You ought to come to Masonic Village. So, you know, you can do as much of this as you can, and you'll be a happy man.
We make the guy at the roaster machine come and join this club and have coffee on it.
Well, go talk to him.
So I have the second half of that table already. I have that grinder.
Good.
So, and I will say I buy my beans from other places, and we actually have a really good resource. Elizabethtown coffee beans are actually probably some of the best beans that I
Yeah.
can get, and I get them all over the place. But what am I setting my grinder to? If I have a drip like that, I don't have that precise coffee maker. But what do you say?
Well, yeah, if you have this, you have the instructions.
I know. I'm
So-
asking you to tell me where.
Well, right here it's on 20. I think it's about between 10 and 15. You know, and it really depends on. I have it on 20, and it's pretty close to getting where I want it. French roast. It's a little larger than normal, but I have. Well, that's what tastes good for me, and it takes practice.
So on the crack, you said you're listening for that crack. I'm thinking popcorn. So
Yeah.
like by the time the first one pops, you're waiting forever for the last one to pop, and then it's burned. So how?
Well, no.
How does that?
Okay,
work?
you'll have to ask an expert. I don't, but I just know. See, okay, this is whirling all the time, so it's gonna be pretty even. And as I noticed, some of them get darker sooner in here. But by the time the cool down goes, it all looks somehow it uniforms out. Is that a correct way to say it?
Okay.
And it's not long. That popcorn pop is not a long period of time.
So do you make your own tea bags in the afternoon?
Are you growing tea behind the property?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You guys make fun of me for my tea, definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
I know you spoke about French press a little bit, and I like to do French press.
Yeah.
And one of the concepts in doing French press is you let the coffee bloom before
Yes.
before you press.
Right.
And I will my drip coffee maker, which has, and I have like Jeff, I have the last part of that table. I have a burr grinder. I like to grind my own beans that I buy, and I'm not necessarily been buying from here, but I may have to start buying from here. And my coffee maker has the rain head in it.
Yes.
Sometimes I will pull the pot and let the filter basket fill, so it kind of blooms in the basket before I put the pot in and let it go.
You're good. I mean, you know what blooming is. I mean, that's
So yeah, that's one of the reasons I love French press.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the coffee
Right.
blooms, and then that to me is the best way to have it.
and you can kind of look in there and see it blooming, that. Yeah.
Basically, the idea of blooming is the particles of the bean begin to suck up water and they actually expand. And they call it
Yeah.
We have an interest group, Dennis, the coffee lovers.
So yeah, French. You know, I like French press as well.
It's a little more messy.
Yeah. And yeah.
Rob, question. So one of the things that I enjoy is going to different coffee shops. I could care less what the coffee tastes like. Sorry. So do you enjoy doing that type of thing? Like visiting different coffee shops, or is it more about having the best cup of coffee and you can go to the same place every time?
When I travel, if we're going to a Verbo and staying 5 or 6 days, I'll take a lot of this stuff because I have no idea what they're going to supply me with. I know, whatever equipment's there is there. A burr grinder, a blade grinder. So I will take, or if it's less time, then I may not take this. I mean, look, I'm flexible.
So you'll come to my house and drink like Jerry?
When I'm at your house, I'm a gracious guest. You can serve me anything, and I will like it because you're more important than your coffee.
Well, the new Keurigs have actually 5 holes in them. The old one just has that center hole.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I was
yeah,
at a
yeah.
Verbo and they had a 5 one, and the taste was remarkably different
Okay.
than the one
Yeah.
with one center hole.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
actually it's actually a little frothy when it's done putting it in your cup. So
Okay.
there's a world of difference.
Well, you're getting the point here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love coffee, and I've gone through all that in the different settings and everything, and I was like, oh, this is just, I'm just drinking coffee.
Well, we all
No,
have
I get it. Though.
we have to accommodate.
Yeah.
We make accommodations. Yeah. It's all good.
Great
Oh,
job.
okay. Thank you.